From Wana Brands, welcome to Enhance Your Life. I'm your host, Jonathan Small, and each week I talk to people from all sorts of professions and backgrounds about how cannabis has enhanced their lives and how this healing plant can enrich your life too. Hey everybody, welcome to the Enhance Your Life podcast. My name is John Small. I am so happy that you're here with us today. We've got a fantastic guest, Yoko Miyashita. Did I say that right? Probably not the correct Japanese pronunciation. Yoko, how do you pronounce your last name?
Miyashita.
Miyashita.
Very close.
Thank you. Who is the CEO of Leafly, which if you don't know, is a publicly traded online destination visited by millions of people each year. They go there to learn about, find, and order cannabis. Leafly has a terrific app that lets you discover all types of weed strains and marijuana dispensaries near you. They recently offered a delivery service option in California. Yoko was appointed CEO in 2020. That is a tough year to start working at any job, after serving as the company's general counsel since 2019. And before that, Yoko spent 14 years at Getty Images, where she led the global legal team. Yoko, thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
So great to join you. Thanks for the invitation.
So I kind of briefly explain what Leafly does. And Leafly does so many different things. So I would love you to kind of give us the overview of what Leafly is and what you guys do.
Let me start with where we're rooted in our mission, and that is to educate consumers about cannabis. We've been at it for 12 years, and just rewind the clock 12 years, right? For those of us here on the West Coast, it is a world before we have recreational cannabis. It is a world before you have a common destination where you can go and learn about strains. Leafly's rooted in that. Let's help surface all of this rich information about this highly complex plant and decipher that for consumers. So it's a mission that's deeply rooted in education. But as we went through the years, it's not just enough to get critical information in the hands of consumers. You've got to connect them to the licensed stores and brands that carry the products they want. So that was really the evolution of our mission in terms of serving consumers and getting them, not only matching them to the right products and strains for their needs, but making it possible for them to locate where they can buy that. And if you know anything about this industry, you know that those supply chains are choppy, and we're not at that stage where you have a consistency week to week of finding the product you want for the store you want.
Yeah. So somebody goes on to your app, and it's mainly an app, right? I mean, there's other...
we have a ton of traffic, primarily mobile, but whether it's our app or our website, that this is where we're welcoming and engaging with our consumers.
What is the thing, I mean, I'm sure you've looked at the traffic. So what is the thing that most people are going onto your platform to find out about?
Here's how I would describe. We've done the hard work of publishing just basic news and learn 101 content, but we don't have to do as much of that. But really the shining light of this organization, what we do is that strains knowledge, that deep information about specific strains. It's not just what we learn from growers, what we learn from our research, but it's also lab data enhanced. And then we match that and pair that with all of the consumer feedback. And some of the great entertainment on our site really is reading some of the strain reviews that consumers post.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But they're also giving us they're giving us qualitative feedback. How did this make me feel? Did it make me feel sleepy? Did it make me feel hungry? Did it make me feel creative, energized? And we can start to help consumers dial into the strains for their particular desired effects and think about the complexity of that. And if you didn't have a strains database to help you dial in, you're kind of in a match trial by error,
education is such an important part of the whole cannabis experience. And people don't really know what they're smoking, what they're putting in their body, right? I mean, that's part of, yeah.
But just think about those words you just said, right? People don't know what you're putting into your body. And we've just gone through a massive health pandemic. The ability to actually explain that to consumers, for us as consumers to feel confident about those kinds of things, that's really core to who we are and what we do. We had a vape crisis in 2019. I don't know if you remember that.
Vapegate, very well known. Vapegate. Yes, I do remember it.
Vapegate, and we saw people die. And the ability to actually decipher that for consumers and tell them early on, hey folks, this is something that we're seeing in the illicit markets, and we are tying it back to vitamin E acetate. This is a new additive that we're seeing being sold in the illicit market. And like, it's that kind of information where we need to bring that data and education to consumers so they can make informed, smart choices. And what we saw was a dip in sales in carts at the outset, but when we were able to isolate that problem, and really Leafly's top-notch reporting investigative team was behind that, and the CDC actually cited Leafly to that, we were able to give that confidence back to consumers to say, buy from the licensed. These products are tested, and you have states acting to ban additives. Like, right. This is how we keep consumers safe.
A lot of people who don't maybe remember VapeGate, I remember it, and most, I would say 99.9% of the lethal cases were from the cannabis that came from the illicit market. And so it was so important to know, like, what is a vetted legal version of this cannabis that you can buy. So do you vet all the brands that are listed on your app and in your destination?
I'm so glad you asked that question. That was such an early decision we made, which is we believe in the licensed market, in which case when we create our online platform, this is a closed environment because we know this is how we keep consumers safe. We will only let licensed retailers and brands onto our platform.
How do you tell? I mean, it's pretty shady.
Yeah, no, we vet. We have a whole diligence process of onboarding, and you've got state and provincial databases available, and you're double checking and getting this information. But we know that's critical for keeping consumers safe.
And what about if some of those licensed companies are also not good actors in the space? Do they get kind of banned from your site or?
Yeah, I mean, we've told those stories. We've done that for a decade, and it's often at short-term cost, right? Like, those are revenue opportunities. And if you know someone is not behaving well, you call that out because that's how you keep consumers safe. And you do that at the expense sometimes of short-term gains for the organization overall. But we look at this as the long-term strategy in terms of investing in really the maturity and growth of the industry as a whole.
Yeah, and so you've mentioned that you have this investigative team, and this really plays out. You have basically like a news desk at Leafly.
We do,
which is very impressive,
line, right?
Yeah,
we have some of the top reporters in cannabis, the deep subject matter expertise, whether that's on the culture side, whether that's what's happening in the California markets, whether that's our news and political writers. They're a phenomenal group of content writers and creators who are telling these critical and unique stories in cannabis.
And you break a lot of stories, and it's rare for a company that's not a media company, right? Like in its core to have this media desk. So that is an unusual, but I'm glad that you're investing in that in this day when people are really cutting back on their news desks and stuff like that, that you guys are investing in that.
Oh, I'm sure we could go for hours on that one. But let's talk about why that's so critical in this industry. Cannabis illiteracy remains high, right? Why is that? Because we've shut the door on this plant for 100 years. It's been under lock and key, under prohibition, which meant research was not happening. The data was not out there. It was stigmatized. So we weren't talking about it broadly. So for us to really unlock the powers of this plant, you've got to decipher that and break that complexity down for consumers. And how we do it is through our editorial team, through their excellent coverage that explains this to consumers. And that's the real opportunity we see. It's not just publishing for publishing's sake, but when we can pull all of that rich information and data we have on our platform into the shopping experience to really create an informed way to shop for cannabis, we think that's unique, and we think consumers need that and want it.
Right. They do want it. Let's talk about you for a minute.
Yeah.
What is this lawyer for, Getty Images, very prestigious photo, doing in the cannabis business? How did you transfer over to the cannabis business? That must have been a big career move for you.
It was a big career move. And the through line is, let's start first and foremost with mission, right? Getty Images is deeply mission rooted in terms of the stories they tell through their photojournalism. And I loved, I was in that industry for 14 years, and you come from that as well. And the passion and what drives individuals. And to see that pulled through to a cannabis company now that's in my backyard. And I'm based here in Seattle, right? One of the oldest markets in the state. You cannot live here and not be just completely stimulated and fascinated by what's happening in your backyard. And let
Mm.
me just add another like super geeky layer to that. I'm a lawyer, a
Yeah.
policy person by training. We are leveraging the skills we've learned to build a new industry, and the opportunities just seemed the opportunities to lay those tracks and decide how it is that we want to build a responsible and inclusive industry, like that's just too many stars aligning, where of course you see an opportunity like this and go, this is my next job.
Yeah.
This is where I'm supposed to be.
But you have to have somewhat of a passion for the plant, right? Or an interest in the plant. What is your personal relationship with cannabis?
I am the prototypical teenage college smoker, and I couldn't have told you what I was smoking 20 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
And
It had lots of seeds in it, probably, and it was right. Yeah,
or you cooked it down and you
yeah.
were eating brownies with a lot of butter. Like, and so that was really my early experience with it. And I am that person who walked into the retail store for the first time and was handed the leafly tile cards of all of these different strains, and seeing this merchandising retail experience, and just, my husband and I just sat and looked at each other in our local store. We were like, this is such a trip.
Yeah.
And so I am then a late life back to the plant of Leafly has been this guide to me through this process of, I'm a middle-aged consumer of the plant to deal with all of my aches and pains and issues that have come with, the wonderful maturing process. But I'm a long distance runner.
Okay.
So marathons. And I actually got to a point where you put that kind of miles on, you kind of beat up your body. And I actually got to a point where I was actually relying on opioid painkillers for a while. And I just remember thinking, this is not a sustainable way of going about this. And so for me, leveraging what I was learning on Leafly to really dial into the right cannabis products to deal with that has been game changing. And it means I can keep running.
Yeah.
Like, this
Do
is
you use it
thing.
after just to manage the
Oh
pain?
yeah, it's after primarily. It's topicals, it's tinctures, and just being able to dial in and continuously sort of playing around with products to dial into how this makes me feel and how I can maintain my body has been game changing. The other piece for me was, I'm one of those, I traveled a lot in my former role, which meant I was taking a lot of Ambien. And if you know anything about that,
I don't
it's
like it.
not, it doesn't leave you sort of feeling fresh
No,
and
it
ready
doesn't
to
make me
go.
feeling rested at all. No.
And so I like cannabis. I tell all of my friends, I sleep like a rock star. I sleep like a rock star because of that ability to dial into the right strains.
Yeah.
So I kind of like, early really, but the fun to me of this has been the dialing in process, right? Like, we know so much more about the plant now. We know how chemical composition and form factor drives effects, like this tinkering and solving the puzzle for your personal wants and needs. I want to feel energized. The other thing for me is, I'm not a social drinker. I don't know if you know this. If you know enough Asian people, you'll meet enough of us who really don't process alcohol well.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, cannabis has opened up this whole aspect of social engagement around, I need a little, Friday night rolls around or the evening rolls around, I need a little pick me up. Oh, my friends and family, they're drinking. What's my version of that?
Yeah.
So dialing into that with cannabis is like, oh, great. I get to have my own.
Yeah. Now, you're of Asian descent, right? Your name is Japanese.
I'm Japanese. Yep.
Japanese. I lived in Japan for a year and have visited Japan. Japan is not warm and fuzzy towards cannabis in any way. I mean, most Asian countries aren't. And there's a real stigma against the plant. Did you grow up with that stigma in your own experience?
There was never a single conversation about cannabis in my household.
Interesting.
I mean, it never even crossed, I think, my parents' spectrum of attention, right? Like, that's how taboo that was.
Yeah.
And you can imagine, you asked me what that transition was like. How do you go from this mainstream?
Yeah. What did you tell your parents?
Like, they were like head scratching. They didn't understand it, but what I will give them so much credit for is they're very open-minded. And I think that's what drives each and every one of us is their kids. One of the stories that through my time here at Leafly is another thing that we focus on is connecting people back to the plant, connecting people to the rich history of the plant. And there is a deep history of cannabis and hemp in Japanese agriculture and even in cooking, as well as fabric. So like that connection back, this is to me a huge part of that destigmatization and normalization process. There was a history before prohibition. Let's connect people back to that history.
Yeah, cannabis was invented or discovered in Asia. I mean, that's what we think in Central Asia. I mean, it comes
So
from
we
Asia.
should be right. We should own this. We should
I
be
know, it's
proud of
like
this.
own it. Yeah, it's very. I'm sorry, I cut you off though.
Oh no, not at all. I was just it's Japan, so I'll just drop this anecdote. There's a special 7 spice pepper. It's called shichimi, 7 flavors.
Oh,
And I was chatting with a girlfriend of mine. She's like, "Yeah, my grandma used to make her own shichimi, and hemp is a key part of shichimi." Like, right? Like,
right.
this is the plant. It's in our lives. It was there before.
It's there. It's too bad. I don't foresee a time in the near future where, I mean, I'm sure it would be very well received by certainly the younger generation. I know when I have my Japanese friends visit me in California, the first place they want to go is the dispensary. They're so fascinated by the fact that you can buy pot here. All right, let's talk about the other facet that's unusual is that you are a woman in an industry which is unfortunately dominated by men, and you're a woman in a very high position, high level position. Do you think the industry of cannabis is more progressive in the way women are treated in higher positions? I mean, unfortunately, there was a lot of optimism when the industry first started that, we could level the playing field. Finally, it's early. And there was these statistics like, 40% of women were running companies. And now the number's like down in the 20% level. What's your experience being a woman at CEO in this industry?
I agree with that sentiment and that desire, right? And it goes back to your question of why did you join this industry? Because it's an opportunity to lay the tracks. And, it is way too infrequent that I look around the table of other CEOs in this industry and go, oh, all right, maybe I look a little bit different. And I see amazing work being done by women in this industry in smaller organizations. And the question then is, how do we as an industry continue to cultivate and make sure they, for example, get the capital they need to build these businesses and launch these brands? Because this is a consumer industry, right? Mm-hmm. Like, go back to all of the basics on consumer buying. Who holds the wallet? A lot of women hold the wallet, right? Who is the target audience? Who are the consumers? I laugh and I'll mention weed moms. Weed moms are real.
Yeah.
And they drive real purchasing behavior. And we see that in our own customer segmentation data. So, to me, it's go back to the basics of what drives business. And we have to focus on that. And we have to make this more inclusive because we have this really unique opportunity to build it. And how many industries do you get to do that?
Yeah. So you guys managed to brave COVID and you went public this year. It's been a lot. They put a lot on your plate. You started in the middle of COVID, right? They're like, here's a company. Go have fun. What was that like starting in the middle of COVID? Did that affect your business quite a bit?
I think COVID was the unexpected for everyone, right?
Yeah.
And it was a tough period and it still continues. And I think that's sort of the hard lesson for all of us. If we are all so emotionally done with COVID, but it's very real, probably coughing every so often because I'm just coming off of it. And it's impacted so many individuals. For us, it was a massive shift. We shut down our office. We've let go of our lease. We're fully virtual. Mm-hmm. And it means, so you've got sort of all of your internal challenges. How do you build a sense of connection? How do you weave in culture? How do you motivate? And I'll tell you, we've got a lot of work to do still on that front because people, especially now, post 2 years out, people miss each other. So we've got to get better, and we're still trying to figure out how do you continue to drive that sense of connectiveness when people need it the most within our organization. Macro and externally, who would have thought that cannabis would be deemed essential?
Yeah, that was amazing and wonderful. Yeah.
What a crazy period. And yet you still have all of these barriers to access and clunkiness in this business. But, I would say for us, like every other online business, COVID really was helpful. It did drive adoption of our online ordering because consumers were forced. to buy online. And
Yeah.
so for us, we really focused on, we had an online ordering tool, but how do you really double down on that and make that even more robust to connect consumers with retailers?
And so now you've introduced this delivery facet to your business. Is California the first state to offer delivery, or do you have, is that, what did you just announce in California? Do you have,
Yeah, I was just cataloging all the states where it's available, but any state where you have a legal delivery framework, our tools are available. And people are like, what is this delivery? What are you actually launching? We have great and strong pickup, right?
Mhm.
Our pickup is, but think about when you're shopping for pickup, you want to know how far you're going to have to drive. You want to know if that product is in stock. So your mental framework for a pickup purchase
It's
is
different.
just fundamentally different than a delivery. You don't care where the retailer is. You just want to know if they deliver to your house. You want to know what's your minimum basket size, or is there a delivery charge? So it really was about creating an experience that makes sense for delivery consumers. And you live in this amazing market where you have that available. We don't have that here in Washington State.
Yeah. That's
But
interesting.
where do you meet consumers where they at, and how do you make it easier for them to shop from licensed dispensaries?
So that's what you're doing now.
Yeah.
What, you might not have this at the tip of your fingers, and we can come back to it. But what are the most searched for strains? I'm wondering on your app. Like there must be
California Blue Dream, hands down.
really. That's it.
Yeah.
Why do you think
Why do you
that
think
is?
that is?
I don't know. Because it has a great name. I don't know.
Because it's great.
It's a great strain. Okay,
It's
that's
a
good to know.
great strain, but it's really, but what's really fun about this and really fun about our content teams and our subject matter experts is that we're always reporting on what's hot. Check out our monthly buzz. And what we're taking is both data from our platform and what everyone's searching for, what we're hearing on the street, and saying, this is the hottest strain, and here's why. And we do a macro form of that in strain of the year. And it's fun to look at these strain attributes and what are people looking for, what kind of experience are they shopping for.
What is hot as we speak right now? Do you know what's the hot?
Oh, I forgot to look at what's hot this month. But like, what's hot may not matter so much depending on what you're shopping for.
Well, yeah, because what's hot could be very high in THC, and you might not be the kind of person that functions well with a lot of THC.
Well, what if it's like a high CBD strain? You're like, yeah, no, that
yeah, it really depends. Well, that's the thing, is cannabis is so individual and so personal, and one strain does not fit all.
One strain does not fit all.
Yeah, by any means. And yeah, so it's important that you use that resource. As a lawyer, I just want to get your take on sort of the legality situation in this country right now with cannabis. I'm sure you get this question a lot. When will cannabis be federally legal? And people were probably more optimistic about that question a few years ago than they are now. Where do you fall on that question of, are we going to be federally legal in the next 5 years?
Up and down, right? The up and down of enthusiasm and the up and down that happens to match capital access to capital, or door opens and closes. And I think you're talking about, we were talking about COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 2020 fall, and all of those state ballot initiatives, looking at a presidential change and sort of that sense of momentum really drove that, like, it's happening, people. We went through George Floyd. We've realized how messed up this war on drugs has been and how it's disproportionately impacted communities. Like, we were all sort of coming off of this sense of possibility. Then you realize it's just so much work and it takes so much more time. Yeah. So that is my long-winded way of saying I cannot speculate as to when federal legalization happens, but I think it's really important to align on the principles that we need to see. And we might even be in a world where we end up with de facto legalization because all 50 states have made their moves to legalize cannabis, because we're at 38 medical, right? 18 up and running rec. I think that's the people telling us they want access to this plant, and you see it in all the stats.
Yeah.
So, like, if I had a crystal, like, of course, if you or I had a crystal ball, we wouldn't be here. But
I have a crystal ball right here, Yoko.
Do you? What did it say?
I'm not telling, otherwise I'd have
Does
to.
It
yeah.
2020. Right.
I know.
Look, we need safe banking. That has a real shot. I was in DC a couple of weeks ago doing some advocacy around this. We need it to keep our people and our dispensary safe. Like, I was just talking about this the other day at a local event around cash-based business. Do you carry cash?
No, I mean, it's nuts. Who carries cash anymore?
No.
It's funny. I go to cannabis events, and it's the only place I ever see like 4 ATM machines because nobody uses ATM machines anymore.
Nobody has cash,
I
and
know.
just I think the disparity, the absurdity of this disconnect between this federal position versus where the states are moving, where the people are at. Like, this is what we've got to tackle.
Yeah.
And it's a real challenge, but I think it's part of our DNA. It's part of how we keep this industry moving forward. We keep going. We keep pushing.
Well, I'm glad you're offering the resources that you're offering to people. It's extremely useful. Leafly, if you don't have the app, there's no reason you shouldn't have it. It's free, isn't it?
It's free. Download, Play Store,
free.
App Store.
Yeah. Get it.
And like push it. You find the best deals. Like, that's what we know about consumers. They love finding deals, and we're here to surface those and just build that connection with you and your community, you and your retailers, and you and the brands that are in your locale.
You're giving them a tool that they can use. It's very useful. Yoko, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us so candidly about the industry and so knowledgeably. It's great to finally meet you.
Great to meet you as well.
Enhance Your Life is brought to you by Wana, the #1 infused product in North America. Wana's entire process is designed to deliver the same great experience time after time. They have spent years fine-tuning their recipes so that their products are delicious, consistent, and potent. For more information, head on over to wanabrands.com. That's Wana, W-A-N-A, brands.com.